The secretarial pool at Sterling Corporation is a wide, bright space. All clean lines and strategically placed potted ferns keep the place from feeling too sterile. I'd only been working here for 3 days, but you wouldn't know it from the scene at my desk. It was lunchtime, and the warm sun spilling through the floor-to-ceiling windows cast a golden haze over everything. I was holding court, surrounded by a circle of my prettiest female coworkers. They were like butterflies drawn to a flower, laughing at my jokes, their bright, bell-like giggles echoing through the office. A few of them blushed and looked away when I'd drop a well-timed compliment, only to sneak glances back at me a second later. "Ethan, my office now." A deep, steady voice cut through the cheerful noise. "You got it, Mark," I called back, pushing myself up from my chair and smoothly extracting myself from the circle of admirers. Mark was Mr. Sterling's executive assistant, a guy with some real clout around the office. "Mr. Sterling wants to see you," he said, his tone giving nothing away. "Mr. Sterling? What about?" A knot of dread tightened in my stomach. The easy smile slid off my face, replaced by a flicker of anxiety. I tried to read Mark's expression for any clue, any hint of what this could be about. "You'll find out when you get there," he said, his face a perfect mask. He turned and started walking toward the corner office. I had no choice but to follow, my mind racing, each step feeling heavier than the last. When I pushed open the door to the executive suite, I saw a tall, handsome man sitting behind a massive mahogany desk. Honestly, I've always been pretty confident in my looks. My face has opened more than a few doors for me over the years, but standing in front of Mr. Sterling, I had to admit the guy was on another level. It wasn't just good looks, it was a rugged, mature charm. Every movement radiated a kind of power and confidence that came from being at the top. It was the kind of handsome even other guys respected. "Mr. Sterling, you wanted to see me?" I said, my voice laced with a reverence I couldn't quite hide. I was still the new guy, learning the ropes, so a direct summons from the big boss was both terrifying and intriguing. "I hear you're quite popular in the office, that the women all seem to like you." Connor Sterling lifted his eyes from a file and pinned me with a scrutinizing gaze, one eyebrow slightly arched. My stomach dropped. Busted, I thought. This is it. I'm getting a lecture on workplace professionalism. Well, sir, I stammered, forcing a smile. "Everyone's just been really welcoming." "Relax. Have you dated much?" The question caught me so off guard I just blinked. I stared at him, trying to figure out if this was some kind of bizarre corporate test. A few times, I guess." I finally managed hedging my bets. "How many is a few?" He pressed, his eyes analytical. I had no idea where this was going. I scratched the back of my neck, feeling a flush of embarrassment creep up my cheeks. "5 or 6. And how old are you?" He continued, his tone unwavering. 22. Just graduated college." As soon as the words were out of my mouth, I saw a flash of what looked like disdain in his eyes. A surge of indignation rose in me, and I rushed to defend myself. "Hey, Mr. Sterling, it's not what you think. I'm not some player. In all of those cases, they pursued me. And I wasn't the one who broke up with them either. They always said I didn't give them a sense of security." I threw my hands up in a gesture of helpless surrender, hoping he'd believe me. He studied me for a long moment, his expression unreadable, as if he was trying to decide whether I was full of it. He seemed to conclude I was probably exaggerating, but he let it slide. "Just be mindful of your professional distance with your female colleagues," he said diplomatically, but I got the message loud and clear. "Don't worry, Mr. Sterling. I have a strict no-office romance policy," I promised, making a mental note to dial it back a few notches. "Actually, the reason I called you in here was to ask you something." He leaned back in his leather chair, steepling his fingers over his chest. His gaze softened slightly. "Anything, sir," I said, my curiosity piqued. He seemed to be searching for the right words. A strange hesitation from a man who is usually so decisive. After a long pause, he finally spoke. He said, "The girls are always the ones who pursue you. Does that mean you know how to pursue someone?" A light bulb went off in my head. I finally understood. The big boss had a crush. I puffed out my chest, a confident grin spreading across my face. Absolutely. I helped all my roommates in college find girlfriends. His eyes lit up with a flicker of hope. He sat up straighter, his voice serious. I need your help. I'm your man, I answered without a second hesitation, ready for the challenge. So, Mr. Sterling, who's the lucky lady? I asked, leaning forward eagerly. I was dying to know what kind of woman could make the famously stoic Connor Sterling turn into this. The CEO of Summers Enterprises, Haley Summers. A barely perceptible warmth crept into his eyes when he said her name. I processed that. Chasing a CEO was not going to be easy. I waited for him to give me more intel, but the silence stretched on. Finally, I prompted him. He spread his hands. That's it. My eyes widened in disbelief. So this is a one-sided crush. You've never even met. He gave a slight, almost imperceptible nod, a faint blush dusting his cheeks. I was floored. I couldn't imagine what kind of woman could make this guy, who is practically married to his work, finally show a spark of interest. Is this going to be a problem? He asked. It's manageable, I said, my mind already kicking into gear. At least we have a name and a company. But Mr. Sterling, you got to do your homework before you go into battle. We need basic intel. At the very least, we need to know if she has a boyfriend or a husband. That's your job now, he said decisively. Your new assignment is to find out everything you can about her. Mark will set you up with an expense account. Starting today, you're on outside assignment. For a man like him, throwing money at a problem was always the fastest solution. The sooner, the better. And this stays between us, he added, his expression turning serious again. Don't worry, Mr. Sterling, I said, my confidence soaring. Consider it done. The next day, I began my week-long stint as a private eye. I went full incognito, baseball cap, sunglasses, and a huge backpack stuffed with gear. I felt like a spy in a B-movie, darting around the city, hunting for any scrap of information about Haley Summers. It was an exhausting week. I spent my days chasing down leads and my nights collating the intel in a cheap motel room. I talked to her friends and colleagues, looked into her spending habits, and even visited her old university to chat with former professors and classmates. Finally, after 7 days of relentless digging, I had a comprehensive dossier. Back in the CEO's office, I dropped a thick binder on Connor Sterling's desk, feeling a mix of exhaustion and pride. Mr. Sterling, here's everything on Haley Summers. Height, weight, home address, birthday, alma mater, family background, hobbies, favorite hangouts, her inner circle. It's not a complete picture, but it's more than enough to get started. The past week had been a marathon, and I felt like I had just run the whole thing uphill. He flipped through the pages, a look of astonishment on his face. He glanced up at me, his expression a little strange, clearly wondering how I'd managed to dig up so much detail in just 1 week. By the way, sir, I said, needing a progress report. Where do things stand between you two right now? She doesn't know I exist, he said, his tone utterly casual. The words hit me like a lightning bolt. I had just spent a week working my tail off, ready to launch a full-scale romantic campaign, only to find out they were still at square zero. Do you have any ideas? He asked, looking at me with a glimmer of hope. I scanned my mental notes from the file, and an idea sparked. Mr. Sterling, our primary objective is to get you from 0 to 1. And lucky for us, tonight's the perfect opportunity. The neon tide was pulsing with life. Rainbow-colored lights strobed across the dance floor, and the bass-heavy music was a physical force vibrating through the floor. As Haley Summers came out of the restroom, heading back to the bar, she walked straight into a tall, handsome figure. The impact sent her stumbling backward, and she nearly fell before a strong hand clamped on her arm, steadying her. I'm so sorry. Are you okay? A deep, magnetic voice asked. She looked up and saw a strikingly handsome man looking at her with genuine concern. He was gorgeous, with chiseled features and a captivating intensity in his eyes. But she was past the age of being impressed by a pretty face alone, though a gentleman always made a good impression. Oh, it's fine. I wasn't looking where I was going, she said with a polite smile. Good. In that case, the man, Connor Sterling, glanced apologetically toward the restroom she was blocking. Oh, sorry, she said quickly, stepping aside. He gave a nod and walked past her. Haley watched him go for a second, a thoughtful look on her face. From my hidden vantage point across the bar, I saw the whole thing and silently pumped my fist. Nice. I whipped out my phone and shot a quick text to him. Perfect, Mr. Sterling. On your way out, walk behind them. Pretend you don't see them. Don't do anything. Just come straight back to the booth. A few minutes later, he emerged from the restroom and followed my instructions. Walking past the bar where Haley and her best friend Chloe were sitting, I clearly saw Haley shift in her seat, her eyes flicking toward him in her peripheral vision as he passed. She even turned her body slightly to watch him go. How'd I do? He asked as he slid into our booth. He looked cool as a cucumber, but the slight tremor in his fingers gave away his nervousness. She's noticed you, I said confidently. Now we just need to find the right moment to make a formal introduction, get her number, and we're in business. What if the right moment never comes? He asked, a frown creasing his brow. If an opportunity doesn't present itself, I said, my eyes gleaming with determination, we make one. But we waited and nothing happened. It drove me crazy. Two beautiful women were sitting at the bar, and not a single guy had the guts to approach them. Okay, that's it. I'm not waiting anymore. Watch this, I muttered, pulling out my phone to call in reinforcements. Hey, Chunk, get your butt over here right now. I've got a mission for you. A few minutes later, I leaned over to Connor. All right, Mr. Sterling. In a minute, a guy's going to go over and hit on Haley and her friend. He's going to be really persistent. Here's what you do. I whispered the plan in his ear. Sure enough, a few minutes later, I saw a familiar figure emerge from the crowd. My friend Chunk, a big, lovable guy, was holding a drink and weaving his way over to Haley and Chloe. A goofy grin plastered on his face as he started laying on some ridiculous pickup lines. Go time, Mr. Sterling, I said, giving him a pat on the shoulder. He took a deep breath and started walking toward the bar. Before he even got there, we could hear Haley's friend, Chloe, snapping at Chunk. What is your problem? Get away from us. But Chunk, ever the professional, just kept smiling and rambling on. Splash! A drink went flying right at Chunk's face, but he wasn't actually drunk, and his reflexes kicked in. He dodged to the side, and the entire contents of the glass sailed past him, landing squarely on the chest of the newly arrived Connor Sterling. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Are you okay? Haley and Chloe gasped in unison. Seeing the plan go so spectacularly wrong, I shot up from my seat and headed for the bar, a sick feeling in my stomach. Connor just stood there, dripping and stunned. This was definitely not in the script. Chloe, seeing the handsome man she'd just soaked, was mortified. She fumbled in her purse for tissues and tried to dab at his shirt, but I got there first. I snatched the tissues out of her hand and gave them to Connor. Mr. Sterling, are you all right? I asked, shooting Chloe a dirty look. I'm fine, he said, shaking his head, clearly confused as to why I'd blown my cover. Here, let me help you, Chloe insisted, trying to reach for him again. You're the one who threw the drink, I snapped, blocking her way. I had done my homework on Chloe. She was a total wild card. I'd seen her ordering male models at a club once. Connor's target was Haley, and getting tangled up with Chloe would be a disaster. Hey, what's your problem? I said it was an accident. I was aiming for that big guy. Hey, where'd he go? Chloe looked around, suddenly realizing Chunk had vanished into the crowd. What big guy? Do you have any idea how much this suit costs? I pressed on, playing the part of the loyal, over-the-top assistant. Connor tried to wave me off, but Chloe's eyes suddenly lit up. I'll pay for it. Here, handsome. Let me get your number. I'll transfer you the money for the suit, she said, her voice dripping with charm. Oh, no you don't. I stepped between them, pulling out my phone and opening my Venmo app. No numbers necessary. It's $3,800. You can scan my QR code right here. I soaked his suit. What's it got to do with you? She said, getting angry. My boss's business is my business. Now stop wasting my time and pay up. I argued, keeping her occupied while Connor and Haley exchanged a look of shared exasperation. All right, Ethan, that's enough, Connor finally said. Chloe, stop it, Haley said at the same time. My boss is a generous man. He's not going to press charges, I said, seizing the opportunity to de-escalate. Let's go, sir. We need to get you a change of clothes. I said, giving him a meaningful look. Time to retreat. Hey, wait. I want to pay for the suit, Chloe called after our retreating backs. It's okay. Let them go, Haley said, pulling her back. Phew, that was close, I said once we were clear. Mr. Sterling, you have to be careful around that Chloe. She's a shark. If she sets her sights on you, it'll ruin any chance you have with Haley. Connor's brow furrowed. I see your point. Love triangles were the last thing he needed. Well, let's call it a night. I sighed, trying to look on the bright side. The mission wasn't a complete success, but at least you're on her radar now, and she kind of owes you one. That'll make the next step easier. At dusk, we were at the waterfront promenade. A cool breeze drifted in off the ocean, dressed in sharp, casual clothes. Connor stood leaning against the railing, watching the sun dip below the horizon, painting the waves in shimmering gold. Remember, Mr. Sterling, the true hunter always appears as the prey. Don't rush it. My voice crackled through the tiny earpiece he was wearing. I was his eyes and ears parked 100 yards away. Target approaching. Mr. Sterling, do not turn around. Haley is coming up behind you, I hissed into the mic. He immediately schooled his features into a look of calm contemplation, pretending to be lost in the beauty of the sunset. A light tap on his shoulder. Hey, I thought that was you. What are you doing here? He turned, feigning surprise, to see Haley dressed in workout clothes, her hair pulled back in a high ponytail in the golden light of the setting sun. She was breathtaking. Fancy seeing you here, he said, keeping his voice steady despite the surge of excitement he must have been feeling. I live right around here, just out for a post-dinner jog. The sunsets here are amazing, she said, her smile genuine and bright. They really are. I was in the area for a business meeting and decided to take a walk before heading home. An awkward silence fell between them. It was clear neither of them was an expert at small talk. I quickly whispered a line into the earpiece. Would you like to walk for a bit? Connor asked. Sure. And so they walked and walked in complete silence. Side by side, they strolled along the water's edge as the waves crashed gently against the shore. The sea breeze tossed their hair, and the whole scene was so quiet and beautiful that I decided not to interfere. I was about to feed him another line, but something about the serene picture they made stopped me. Maybe this was better. Maybe this quiet companionship was exactly what they needed. The sun finally disappeared completely, and the sky slowly darkened to a deep indigo. The street lights along the promenade flickered on one by one, casting a warm yellow glow. About the other night, Haley finally said, breaking the silence, I'm really sorry about my friend. Let me pay you back for the suit. Don't worry about it. It's already been dry cleaned, Connor said with a warm smile. The suit meant nothing to him. This moment meant everything. Seeing how gracious he was, she let it go. My car is over there, he said, pointing to a nearby parking lot. Oh, well, see you around, she said, giving a little wave, a flicker of disappointment in her eyes. Yes, see you. By the way, my name's Connor, he said, deciding at the last second to make a real connection. I'm Haley, she replied, a small, polite smile gracing her lips. He chuckled. Haley and Connor. A bit of a coincidence, huh? He said, hoping to build on the moment. She smiled back, a real smile this time that reached her eyes. I guess it is. Well, I should get going. Maybe I'll see you around, he said, giving another wave before turning to leave, a charming smile still on his face. Hey, wait. He had only taken a few steps when she called out to him from my hiding spot. I couldn't stop a triumphant grin from spreading across my face. At the same time, I saw the corner of Connor's mouth twitch into a smile as he heard her call. Yes, Haley. Is something wrong? He asked, turning back to her, his eyes full of anticipation. Well, she started, her cheeks turning a shade of pink. She fidgeted, avoiding his gaze, clearly not having thought this far ahead. Connor, to his credit, just waited patiently, his expression gentle and encouraging. It's just my friend Chloe, the one who spilled the drink on you. She's been insisting that we have to apologize properly. So, since we ran into each other, maybe I could get your number. We could take you out to dinner sometime to make up for it. She finally got the words out in a rush. It was a half-truth. Chloe had been nagging her about it, but I knew Haley wanted his number for herself, too. You can have my number, but dinner really isn't necessary, he said, his heart soaring. He quickly pulled out his phone and brought up his contact QR code with a satisfying ding. She had added him. Okay, you just need to accept the request, she said, looking up at him expectantly. He quickly approved it, a thrill running through him as he saw her profile picture pop up on his screen. Okay, well, I'm going to go now, she said, her mood visibly lighter. All right, goodbye, Haley. Goodbye, Connor. She turned and walked away. He stood there watching her until she disappeared into the darkness, a wide, goofy grin plastered on his face the entire time. Ethan Vance. Mark's urgent voice sliced through the office chatter coming from the direction of the CEO's suite. I was in the middle of a very interesting conversation with one of the junior secretaries and looked up annoyed. What could be so important? Coming, I called quickly, excusing myself and heading toward the corner office, my mind racing. When I walked in, I found Connor staring intently at his phone, his expression impossible to read. My stomach clenched. Did the chat with Haley go south? What's up, Mr. Sterling? I asked cautiously. They invited me to dinner. He handed me his phone, his voice flat, but the slight frown on his face betrayed his inner turmoil. I took the phone and felt my jaw drop. There were only 2 messages in the chat history. The first was the automated notification that they were now contacts. The second was the dinner invitation he had just received. In the 2 days since they'd exchanged numbers, they hadn't spoken a single word. Hi, Connor. It's Haley. I was wondering if you're free tonight. Chloe and I wanted to take you to dinner. I read the message aloud, a note of exasperation in my voice. I shook my head and handed the phone back. After a moment of thought, I knew what we had to do. Turn her down, I said decisively. Tell her you have something important tonight. Tell her not to worry about the apology, that it's all in the past. We need to close the loop on that excuse. Pacing was everything in this game. He nodded silently and started typing. A moment later, he showed me the draft. I'm sorry. I have an important meeting tonight. Please don't worry about the other night. It was an accident. There's no need to feel obligated. I gave him a thumbs up and he hit send. A minute later, a reply came back complete with a picture. Connor and I leaned in to look at the screen. If you're busy tonight, another day is fine. My bestie doesn't like feeling indebted to people. She already bought you a gift, and if she can't give it to you, it's not like we have any use for men's stuff. The picture was of a beautifully wrapped gift box tied with a silk ribbon. I peered closer at the screen, and my brow furrowed. Mr. Sterling, this definitely wasn't written by Haley. This is Chloe written all over it. The tone is completely different from the Haley we've researched. Connor's frown deepened. He hadn't expected this level of persistence. Maybe I should just have them mail the gift to the office, he suggested, not wanting to seem rude. Absolutely not, I said, my voice sharp. If they get the office address, we lose all control of the information flow. What if Chloe decides to just show up here? It would be a disaster. He nodded, seeing the logic. Then what do? We accept, I said. I'll go with you. I'll run interference with Chloe, and you can focus on Haley. But remember, under no circumstances are you to engage with Chloe. If you do, it's game over for you and Haley. All right, he said, his jaw set. He picked up his phone and typed. Okay, then I'm free tomorrow. Send me the location. The next evening, Chloe's chosen spot turned out to be a high-end rooftop barbecue restaurant, a hidden oasis in the middle of the city. String lights were draped between elegant gazebos, casting a warm, magical glow over everything. Connor, over here, Chloe's cheerful voice called out. She and Haley were already seated. Chloe's face lit up when she saw him, but as her eyes landed on me walking behind him, her smile vanished. What are you doing here? She demanded, her voice laced with disappointment. Hey, I was part of the incident, too. Why can't I be here? I shot back with a smirk. I didn't invite you, she huffed, crossing her arms. Please, Haley invited my boss. What does it have to do with you? We're both just mooching a free meal, so let's not get territorial, I retorted, plopping down in the seat directly across from her. Connor naturally sat down across from Haley. All right, the gift, Chloe said, remembering her mission. She reached for a bag and started to hand it to Connor, but I snatched it out of her hands before she could. What are you doing? That's for Connor, she yelled. I'm his assistant. It's my job to carry his things, I said smugly, tucking the bag safely behind me. Normally, I'd be a perfect gentleman, but my boss's love life was on the line. You, she sputtered, red-faced and furious. Connor and Haley just watched us, amused smiles on their faces. The tension in the air seemed to melt away as they watched us bicker. The rest of the dinner was chaotic. Chloe kept trying to draw Connor into a conversation, and I kept intercepting, deflecting, and generally making a nuisance of myself. Connor and Haley were mostly spectators, exchanging entertained and slightly exasperated glances. When the meal finally ended, Chloe grabbed my arm as we were leaving, pulling me aside while Connor and Haley walked ahead. This was perfect. It gave them some time alone. "All right, you little jerk. What's your game?" she whispered furiously. I dropped the act and got serious. "Look at them," I said, nodding toward our bosses. She followed my gaze. Connor and Haley were walking side by side, a comfortable silence between them. They both happened to be wearing black, and against the backdrop of the softly lit rooftop garden, they looked like a perfect couple in a movie. "My boss isn't your type," I said bluntly. "Don't let your little crush get in the way of your best friend's happiness." Her head snapped back toward me, her eyes wide with shock. "Wait, you're saying Connor likes Haley? Why else do you think he'd be here? The man is famously allergic to women. He wouldn't have given you the time of day if he wasn't interested in Haley." I needed to get her on our side. Connor and Haley were moving at a glacial pace. "We needed an inside agent." "You knew it was me who invited you?" she asked, surprised. "Please, Haley would never be that shameless." I scoffed. "How do you know so much about her?" she asked, her eyes narrowing. I mentally kicked myself for the slip-up. My boss and Haley had a few interactions before. How do you think they got each other's number?" I improvised. "So, do you think Haley likes him back?" she asked, her curiosity now fully engaged. The matchmaker in her was overriding the flirt. "Well, she hasn't noticed you've been gone for 5 minutes, has she? What do you think?" I said with a knowing smile. That hit her like a ton of bricks. She looked toward the exit where her best friend was about to leave without her. "That traitor," she muttered under her breath, then immediately looked guilty. "Oh my God, I'm the worst friend. She hasn't dated anyone in years, and the first time a great guy comes along." I totally ignored what she might be feeling. "So, feel like getting a real drink?" I asked. See my opening. The sips of beer I'd had at dinner hadn't even touched the sides. "You're on. Let's see who's left standing," she shot back, her competitive fire ignited. By the time we stumbled out of the second bar, Connor and Haley had been waiting for a while. Haley looked at us, a guilty expression on her face. "What took you guys so long?" she asked. "Nothing. Hey, Connor, I'm borrowing your assistant for the night. You make sure you get Haley home safe," Chloe announced, slinging an arm around my neck. Connor glanced at me, and I gave him a subtle nod. He got the message. "Chloe, where are you two going?" Haley asked, concerned. "Don't worry about us. We're going to find a place to settle this once and for all." "I'm going to drink this little punk under the table," Chloe declared. "Just be safe," Haley called after us. The next morning, I woke up in a hotel room with a pounding headache. Chloe was stirring beside me. We opened our eyes at the same time, and a thick, awkward silence filled the room. I was the first to move, grabbing my clothes from the floor. She did the same, her face flushed. We dressed without a word and left without looking back. "Mr. Sterling," I thought, rubbing my aching back, "I'm sacrificing everything for you." It was after 10 by the time I got to the office. I walked straight to the executive suite and knocked. "Maine." I found Connor staring at his phone, but his expression was neutral. "So, Mr. Sterling, any progress with Haley last night?" I asked eagerly. Instead of answering, he just stared at my neck, a questioning look on his face. I instinctively slapped a hand over the very obvious hickey there, my face burning. "Ahem. Well, you don't have to worry about Chloe anymore. She's officially on our team now." He gave me a thumbs up, then slowly turned it into a middle finger, a smirk playing on his lips. Okay, but seriously, what happened?" I pressed. He shook his head. "Nothing. I walked her home, and we took a walk on the beach." I sighed. These two were hopeless. They needed a push. "Mr. Sterling, I think we need to change tactics. We need to be more aggressive. I don't think Haley is going to make a move, especially after the Chloe situation. I agree. It's time for the man to be more proactive, he said. Excellent. Give me a minute. I have a perfect idea. I rushed out of the office. You two like scenic walks. I'll give you a scenic walk. Half an hour later, I was back. Holding up my phone, I sent her this picture. Tell her the cherry blossoms on Sakura Avenue near the office are in full bloom. He did as he was told. A minute later, a reply came back. It's beautiful. Are you asking me out on a walk? We both stared at the screen, stunned. The directness was completely unexpected. Mr. Sterling, I said, my eyes wide. Haley has an evil mastermind coaching her. What do I do? He asked, looking lost. I leaned in and whispered a reply in his ear. He typed out, no, I just happened to be passing by and thought it was pretty, but I can accompany you if you'd like to see it. Her reply was instantaneous. Oh, accompany me since it's near your office. Wouldn't I be accompanying you? He looked up at me, an expression on his face that clearly said, this is what you call being on our team. We both knew this was Chloe's work. I just laughed. Okay, they're on to us. Let's just own it. I took his phone and typed some messages. Would you be willing to accompany me to see the flowers? I immediately followed it up with another text from him. Since you asked so nicely, I'd be delighted to take a break from work. And then a third, 5:30 this afternoon. I included the address. All right, sir, I said, handing the phone back. They're expecting a play, so I can't be in your ear. Just be yourself. I'll handle the rest. I sat in my car, parked down the street, my eyes glued to the entrance of Sakura Avenue. I had a feeling Chloe was lurking somewhere nearby, too. Connor and Haley met under the canopy of pink blossoms. There was a moment of shared awkwardness. Both of them knowing this date was orchestrated, but both of them clearly happy to be there. Cotton candy vendor, you're up, I said into my walkie-talkie app. I'd done my research. Haley had a massive sweet tooth. Sure enough, her eyes lit up when she saw the card, but she hesitated, probably thinking it was too childish. That's when my hired vendor called out. Hey, handsome, buy cotton candy for your beautiful girlfriend. They both blushed, but didn't correct him. Connor, remember my notes? Seized a moment. One, please. Is orange. Okay. He asked her, already knowing it was her favorite color. She nodded, her smile as sweet as the treat she was about to eat. He handed it to her, and she took a bite, her eyes closing in bliss. Watching her, Connor's heart started hammering in his chest. He was completely captivated. Photographer, get the shot now, I commanded into the app. They walked down the path, surrounded by a gentle shower of pink petals. Near the end of the road, another one of my hired hands, a young man with a camera, approached them. Excuse me, I'm a street photographer, and the two of you just looked so perfect walking here. I couldn't resist taking a picture. Please, let me give you this. He handed them two small, elegant photo frames. Inside was the shot he'd just taken. Haley holding the cotton candy, smiling up at Connor with pure joy while he looked down at her with a gaze full of unabashed affection. Thank you. This is incredible, Connor said, genuinely impressed. Haley was speechless, just staring at the photo with a happy, dazed look. Would you like to get some dinner? He asked, pressing his advantage. I'd love that, she whispered. The next morning, I walked into the office to find Connor grinning from ear to ear, clutching his phone like it was a winning lottery ticket. The framed photo from yesterday was sitting proudly on his desk. Well, it looks like someone had good night, I teased, walking over. He was so giddy he just handed me his phone, wanted to show off his chat history with Haley. I started reading, and as I read, my smile faded, replaced by a deep frown. They had texted until almost 1 o'clock in the morning. On the surface, Haley's messages seemed normal, but I could see the subtle manipulation, the carefully crafted questions designed to lead him on. He was being played like a fiddle, and he didn't even know it. That poisonous woman, Chloe, I thought, not wanting to burst his bubble. I just shook my head and left the office. The second the door closed, I fired off a text to Chloe. You venomous witch. You took advantage of my absence. Her reply came back instantly. I get to have sleepovers with my bestie. You're welcome to go have sleepovers with your boss if you want. I was so mad, I almost threw my phone. We need to talk tonight, I typed back. Anytime, anywhere, she replied. That night we met at a bar. The argument quickly escalated. The drinks flowed freely, And the next morning we woke up in another hotel room. Same time tonight, I challenged pulling on my pants. You bet your ass. But right now, some of us have to work, she retorted. After that, without me and Chloe pulling the strings, Connor and Haley's conversations became normal. A little too normal. They texted every day, simple good mornings and good nights, sharing pictures of nice scenery. A month went by like this. I was so caught up in my own whirlwind with Chloe that I figured they were just taking it slow. Then the bomb dropped. Chloe was pregnant. We both remember the night the condoms ran out. We figured, what are the chances? Turns out the chances were 100%. She had already scheduled an abortion and only told me because she needed a signature. I was furious. I don't agree, I said, my voice shaking. It's my body. I don't need your agreement, she shot back, but I could see the tears in her eyes. I knew she didn't want to do it. Then what do we do? She asked, her voice cracking. We get married, I said without a second of hesitation. Fine, but I swear to you, Ethan Vance, if you ever cheat on me, I will make your life a living hell, she threatened. Same to you. You so much as look at another guy, and you'll regret it, I shot back. When Connor and Haley got our wedding invitation, they were so shocked they could barely speak. We got the license the next day and threw ourselves into planning. Naturally, Connor and Haley were our best man and maid of honor. On the wedding day, I was a nervous wreck, pacing back and forth backstage. Connor, ironically, was the calm one, clapping me on the shoulder. It's your big day, man. Enjoy it. The ceremony went off without a hitch. Then came a bouquet toss. Chloe stood there, looked out over the crowd of single women, and then with a wicked grin, turned around and walked directly over to Connor, placing the bouquet firmly in his hands. I caught my boss's eye and gave him an encouraging nod. He understood. He took a deep breath, and holding the flowers, he walked slowly, deliberately over to Haley. The entire venue fell silent. Haley Summers, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I love you. Will you be my girlfriend? Tears of joy streamed down her face as she nodded. Yes. The crowd erupted. Kissa. And in front of everyone, he finally did. Just then, a party popper exploded, showering the happy scene with confetti. Chunk, my old friend, stood there grinning. Sure, please. Chloe's eyes narrowed as she looked at him. Hey, I know you.